Haunted Hangover presents Haunted Hall.
Welcome to another edition of Haunted Hall. I'm Louie.
I'm Manny.
And today on the show, we're going to be talking about the 2001 film, Session 9. Now, before we jump into the actual movie, it's funny. Last time we recorded, we were talking about what movie we're going to cover next in the podcast. And I couldn't find my copy of Session 9 because obviously the rule of our podcast is we have to watch it on physical media. You have the lovely Blu-ray copy, which we'll get into later. That came out, what was it, like a year or two ago?
December 2021, I think it was.
So yeah, not that long ago.
Yeah.
And I have a 2001, I believe, DVD copy of the movie, but I couldn't find it. So we were on Zoom, but we weren't recording the podcast. And I was like, where the fuck is this thing? I'm in the back looking at it through my DVD Blu-ray rack. And I was like, where the hell is this? And I forgot that I wouldn't call it a purge, because purge is when you're getting rid of everything. I wasn't really getting rid of it, but I was kind of consolidating things and fixing things. And I completely forgot. And this goes back to physical media, that I have a binder of DVDs that I think I just got like fed up with having so much shit lying around at one point that I just completely threw away all the plastic covers, kept the slip covers and the DVD, and just put them in this giant like 250, 300 like disc binder. And I looked through my closet, like one of the closets in my apartment, and like, yeah, where the fuck is this movie? And I was like, oh shit, I have an entire binder of, I forgot. You forget about shit you own. I was like, that's where Session 9 was. And it was just a bunch of bootleg disc, random movie stuff I have doubles of, like weird. I was like, why? Like, I completely forgot about this binder. And then you think about it, with streaming now, if you want to watch certain movies, you don't have to go through your collection. You don't have to go through a binder. So, like, there is literally no reason for me to go to this binder unless there's a movie I really need to watch that's not streaming anywhere. So I just thought it was really funny. I was like, what the fuck? And you were saying off air that you have a binder too.
Yeah, I have a bigger binder. It's it holds 2 movies on each page. Usually you get 4 discs.
Yeah,
you get 1,
that's
2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
mine is 2. And then on the side is a vertical, so I can actually take the slip out of the plastic case and save it. So I have the movies and the covers without the actual plastic case.
Well, that's how mine is. That's mine. I think some of mine though I threw away.
I can take this out and keep that inside it
without folding it or anything.
Just like that. I fold it just like that.
Oh wow!
And it sits in. It's meant so I can keep the actual covers.
Yeah, what inspired me to do that?
And I can just throw the plastic case out.
Yeah, that's what I did. I got rid of the plastic case. I just didn't want it. I had so much shit, and I was like, I don't like. Do I really need to hold on to like the entire packaging for a movie? For some movies,
yeah,
especially when you rebuy the movie. Mm-hmm. Like when you really think about it, if you rebuy, you want the special edition of a specific movie you love, and you have like this bare bone DVD. You can either just throw away the DVD completely, or if you're a hoarder like me apparently, and I just keep it in a binder in my closet, and forget about it. I could not find Session 9 at all, and then I was like, oh shit, I have this fucking binder. That's why.
Well, think about it. When was the last time you watched it? Like before this, when was the last time you put that DVD on?
It's been a while. Yeah. I think the last time I watched Session 9 was a few years ago, and it was on some streaming platform. It was, I forget which one. I don't think it was Netflix. I forget who it was. Yeah. I think I just randomly it might have been Pluto TV.
Probably.
But it was a few years ago. I actually had watched it in the last, I'd say, 5 years. And that's a good segue, because I always feel, before we get into the actual movie, that this is a movie that people forget about. People forget about this movie all
100%.
the time. And I think try to think why it's so easily forgettable because, spoiler alert, we both enjoy this movie thoroughly.
Oh, love the hell out of it. Dude, we used to watch this so much, man.
It's just weird because whenever you think of, and I wouldn't call this a haunted house movie because it's not a house, it's a hospital, but a haunted location movie.
But is it haunted?
We'll get into that later. Yes, we'll get into that later. But when you think of it in a traditional sense,
yes, yeah,
a haunted place movie.
It has those characteristics of a haunted house movie. Yes,
and because it's pretty. Most people, when you mention Session 9, are like, wow, that was a good movie. But they forget it exists. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because it came out in 2001, right before 9/11, which is what I think that's why. I feel like anything that happened in August of that year, like anything that came out right before 9/11 is just forgotten about. It's like that was such a traumatic experience. And this literally came out a month before 9/11.
Well, there's a little bit to not. I mean, maybe that's possible, but there is a little. We'll probably get into that, but I mean, unless you want to get into that now.
No, not yet. Okay. Not yet. I think we should save that for when we go into the actual film. But that's always just been a thing. I always feel like it's forgotten about. Anytime I mention this movie, people are either like, "I've never seen it," never heard of it, or "Shit, I forgot that movie exists." So I'm glad that you wanted to cover it on the show. It gave me a reason to revisit it. Funny too. I was sitting here with the wife when I was watching it because I watched it twice. The first time, and I put it on, and she's like, "Why does this movie look so familiar?" And it's because she saw it like 15 years ago and forgot about it. She was like, "Oh, this movie looks so familiar. Wow, it's a really good movie." Like she realized, like, "Oh, this is a really well-made film."
Yeah.
And then she's like, "But I feel like I've seen it, but don't remember." She walked in about 10 minutes into the movie, so it's like she missed the very beginning.
Yeah.
But she caught on quick, and she's like, "Wow, that was a really good movie," and she just completely forgot it existed. So that's kind of what I feel followed. That's kind of Session 9's like legacy, the forgotten haunted, the legacy is that it always gets forgotten. That's basically what it is. But yes,
it's a hell of a legacy.
Hell of a legacy. The forgotten haunted place movie about guys that remove asbestos.
Listening to some of the things, actually, it's something that the producer, the director, they all say the same thing, that it's one of those movies that ends up on one of those top 10 or top 25 best horror films you've never seen. The director, Brad Anderson, says he's always like, especially that year. He said that year and like the couple of years afterwards, like every single year they were on the top 10 horror films you've never seen. And he's like, how can we just get on the top 10 horror films list? He's like, you don't want that qualifier of movie of that you've never seen. Can we just cut that off? And
that's like the list. You're happy you're on it, but then you're also like, damn, no one's watching my shit.
Exactly.
What the fuck?
So the loonies are outside in the real world, and here we are with the keys to the loony bin, boys.
You might actually want to be grateful, and you're about to make some decent money.
What's the catch?
Patricia Willard scandal, 1984.
I want you to try to remember what happened 24 years ago.
Use your imagination.
These shrinks figured that with these new techniques they designed, they could release hidden memories.
You can hear me.
You okay?
I want to go home.
I wouldn't tell anybody about this. If they find out about Hank, they're gonna find out about the others.
What are the others?
Okay, so Session 9 is about they're a hazmat demolition team. Not really demolition, not demolition in the form of tearing down a building, but they go into abandoned and dilapidated buildings and they clean it. Basically, they clean out asbestos is one of their main things. So they're an asbestos cleanup team. They are hired to clean out the Danvers Mental Institution, which is a real hospital in Massachusetts, in Danvers, Massachusetts. The place is shut down, and I'm assuming that it's been sold or whatever, and now they're cleaning it out. So this team is being brought in to clean out the asbestos, and just put simply, weird things happen. In different, but it's so strange to explain this movie because it's not like weird things happen, but weird things happen. The main thing is one of the members, Mike, who I just learned is actually the co-writer of the movie too. The actor who plays Mike.
I learned that too.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
no.
I didn't know that either. I was like, oh shit. So he acted and wrote the screenplay. Interesting.
Yeah. He is a former lawyer, or at least he was in law school at one point, and he gets interested in some of the files and tapes, and he finds a group of reel-to-reels down in the basement of it, and they are sessions with one specific patient. As he's going through, he finds them all, and there's 9 sessions. So through the course of the film, he listens to each tape consecutively, following this one patient's therapy sessions over 9 sessions. That woman, she was a teenage girl who killed her family and now has 3 split personalities, or rather 4 if you count her.
Yeah.
And they are the princess, which is a little girl, Billy, who is a little boy, and Simon, who we don't meet until later.
Yeah.
And they're basically protecting the girl's psyche from the trauma of what she did. And Mike gets heavily involved in it. And and now Gordon, who's the leader of the team, he's having some sort of, difficulties at home. His wife threw him out or some sort. So you see him from time to time, talking to her on the phone, pleading this, I want to come home. I want to see my baby, blah, blah, blah. Then we have, this is why it's kind of, as I say, it's kind of difficult to explain because everyone kind of has their own thing.
Yeah. Cause in reality, there's one character I'd say that's kind of throwaway, and I'm not trying to be negative on the movie yet or anything I don't like, things I don't like about it. But yeah, Gordon is he's the driving force.
Yes.
He is the lead of this film. Everyone else is sort of everyone else is sort of supporting. It is an ensemble between him and Phil, David Caruso, which I always get a kick out of. But Gordon really kind of drives the story. Yeah. You're following him
mostly. Yeah,
I'd say 75.
I would say him and Mike because of the sessions. It's the two of them.
The sessions, yeah.
But their stories are so separate. You could. That's the thing. It's like they're the two stories that are happening at the same time, but they don't actually intersect. But then they do.
They kind of work off of each other.
Yes.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
Like Gordon doesn't know what Mike's doing.
Mm-hmm. And Mike doesn't know what's going on with Gordon.
Exactly. So he finds out eventually what's going on, or what Gordon or what Phil thinks is going on with Gordon. That's really the plot. That's what the movie's about. It's about Gordon, this guy that owns this company, down in his luck, started a family, has a newborn baby. He's trying to keep it together because early on in the film, and I will say this, because it's Peter Mullen plays Gordon, and early in the movie, when you first meet Gordon, Phil steps away, and this kind of is, again, just the main driving force behind what's happening in the film. Gordon's pleading with the guy, like, I really need this job.
Yes,
like, this is it. They hone it in so well that that's all you really need to know about the plot, and the rest of it's a mystery, and how this is going to kind of unravel, and how this descent into madness kind of happens day to day, because the film takes place over.
He kind of screws them over because he agrees that they'll clean the whole place out in 2 weeks. He'll get all the asbestos of this huge asylum. One week.
It's 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks normally, but he tells them because he really wants this job.
They'll get a bonus if they do it in
1 week.
Yes.
And it goes back to just how desperate he is for this money. And they're each going to get 10 grand, each member of this group, because there are 5 of them, 5 men. It's Phil, Gordon. Then you've got Mike that you mentioned. Hank and Jeff, who is Gordon's nephew. Yes. So he's got kind of and that's one of the movie's strongest kind of attributes, is just these guys feel like blue collar dudes that are just
Yeah.
trying to make money and trying to just get by enough with their jobs. Like they're basically working job to job, like a contractor would, a construction guy or a plumber thing. You know, that type of gig where it's not it's not a steady paycheck. You have to get these contracts to keep it
Constantly
going.
work, yeah.
And that's where you feel Gordon's desperation of wanting to get this. The rest of the guys kind of are just there, and Phil's is man B, I'd say. He's like, you know,
exactly.
he's manipulating things because he wants to get things his way and doesn't trust the guys. He thinks Gordon's kind of having issues. And on top of all that, like you said, you've got Mike, who's, you know, discovering this evil shit with this patient in this hospital. And then Gordon kind of every day as we go through, because I believe the film takes place from Monday to Friday.
Yeah,
it ends on Friday. And little by little, Gordon is starting to lose it, and there's creepy shit happening creepy. Again, because it's all an interpretation when you watch the movie.
Hello, Gordon.
Gordy? It's me, man. Come on.
Every single character has their own motivation, and they all do what they do for different reasons. Like you say, Gordon is out. He wants this job. He needs the money. Phil is his partner, and he's trying to run the company with him. And you know, he's watching Gordon slowly
Phil
lose
is
it.
definitely corrupt. It's David Caruso, for God's sake.
See, I don't know if he's corrupt.
There's sort of an underlying kind of
There's
dark
something.
side to that character. Like you feel like you can't, like, why does Gordon trust this guy? But even Gordon throughout the film is like, why am I trusting this guy? You know what I mean? Why am I trusting Phil? So and that's the performance, honestly.
I think that comes in with Hank, because we find out that Hank is not a regular member of this crew. Mike is. And Jeff, this is his first gig with them. So he's giving his nephew. And I think it's technically his wife's nephew.
Yeah.
Like it's her sister's
Through
son.
Marriage. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah, it's his sister's son. It's his wife's sister's son, I believe. So he's giving him a shot. Let me give him a job. You know, young kid. But Hank is kind of a floater. He's one of those guys, they bring him in if they need extra. And another guy that actually is in it is Larry Fessenden. He's another floating guy that they hire from time to time.
Very brief role.
Very briefly.
Blink and you'll miss it almost.
Yeah. Phil wanted to hire him because him and Hank don't get along, because Hank is fucking Phil's ex-wife. And you find out that Hank really doesn't give two shits about her. He really doesn't care about her that much. And he even says at one point, he's kind of joking but kind of not, that he's only fucking her to piss off Phil.
Yeah.
You know, he's kind of joking, but he's kind of not. Yeah, he's a little bit of because he has a gambling problem. Yeah. He's a gambler. He's a poker player. He likes to, you know, so he's only using this to get more money to go to the track or to play, you know, to go gamble something. That's what he does. He's a get rich quick guy. And so Phil and Hank don't get along. So Phil doesn't want him. So there's always this level of deception where he's trying to where Phil is trying to find a reason to get rid of Hank, to try to get Gordon to fire Hank. So that's where some of his deception comes in. A lot of his deception comes in. It's just trying to ruin Hank.
And it's funny because in a movie like this, you'd expect the characters to, like, they're at each other's throats, but really it's subtle. Yeah. They never attack each other, punch, fight. There's really not any of that. It's more like low shots. So you're like, fucking this. And, you know, just kind of taking shots at each other.
Because they still have to do a job. They still have to work.
They have to keep it professional.
Yeah. And Mike is kind of one of those people who, like they say, he was in law school and he was going to be a lawyer. His father was a big lawyer, and he just didn't feel it. So now he's doing this just so he can kind of figure out what he wants to do with his life. He's only doing this for now. He's got a family. Again, if his father was a big high-powered lawyer, they have some money in the family. He doesn't need this. He's doing it because he's got nothing else to do right now. And the kid
he's
is just
the intellectual of the group.
He
is
is,
basically
absolutely.
that's what Mike is there
Yes.
for. That character's there to kind of be the guy that he knows the history of the hospital, and he's the guy that reads books. Because there's
Yes.
plenty of shots of him just sitting on the side reading a book, and then that's what's great about the movie. They each have such distinct personalities.
Yes.
And it's no one's cookie cutter in a way. It's everyone is so different from one another, and that's what works perfectly within the cast. One more thing I want to mention is it's alluded to that Gordon. Well, not alluded to. It's basically you find out midway through the film that Gordon hit his wife. He hit her.
He hit her
in a fit of rage because boiling water fell on his leg.
Yeah, the pot of she was boiling pasta and a pot of water fell and
and he hit her. So through I'd say about half the film, we cut back to you only hear this interaction. You never see it.
He confides in Phil with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we see the wound. We see he's walking with a limp, and we see
putting
the gross
iodine on it, and
it's disgusting. We see it on his leg. And he's sort of dealing with the guilt of hitting his wife, staying at a motel. He's no longer home. So this dude's just going through a lot of shit right now. He just wants to complete this job. He's dealing with these fucking jabronis who keep fucking cursing each other out that he's working with. And then his wife, just kind of the whole situation. And he's like a thermometer, dude, the entire film, ready to pop. And you see it the whole movie. And it's interesting, and I guess we could move away from the actual synopsis part of the movie and kind of just go into different things, different aspects of the movie. But in the film, when you meet, and I don't know if this was done on purpose, and a lot of parallels to The Shining, like blatant,
100%.
And that's honestly, like the best way to kind of articulate it is Jack's descent into madness in The Shining, but instead of it being a small family stuck in a hotel, it's 5 dudes stuck inside of a hospital, an abandoned hospital that's run down and needs to be fixed. And Gordon's descent into madness, and that's basically what the movie is, because you even said it. Is it supernatural?
Yeah.
You never really know. You never find out. You never find out if this place is actually haunted. And that's another thing. And I know revisiting it this time, there's not a lot of spooky images. You know what I mean? There's like no.
It's all spooky images, but no spooky things.
Ghost. There's no spooky ghost.
It's like all those stereotypical. I wouldn't say stereotypical, but all like everything you picture when you picture a haunted house.
Yes.
The images, the color, like the way the coloring of things, the way that you're gonna shoot it, the way the shadows land on things, the little things in the darkness over here. They shot it so perfectly. Like if you were to imagine an abandoned haunted mental hospital in your head, this is exactly what this movie looks like. This movie is exactly what you would see in your head before you even saw the film.
And and you mentioned the hospital, like you said before, this is an actual they shot at an actual abandoned hospital.
Yes.
And they shot parts of it from what I was reading. Like most of it was shot there, but there was a couple of scenes I think they shot, like they built maybe small sets or something like that. Inside the actual hospital.
Yep.
But
it's all shot in the hospital.
What I do love about this, and it goes back to the whole kind of Shining comparison, the movie opens up like The Shining.
Yes.
Almost shot exactly the same way, where we've got Phil, we've got Gordon, I forget the character's name, but we've got this guy who's showing them around the actual hospital, the abandoned hospital, and the framing, the camera movement, basically following
Bill
them.
Griggs, played by Paul Guilfoyle. Yeah.
Yes, and it's literally following them from room to room. We spend about, I'd say, 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes in the beginning of the film following these characters, getting a tour of where they're going to work. And and I
We're
wouldn't
also
say
setting up the ending with it, though.
Of course. But I wouldn't say
totally setting up the ending.
It's not ripping off The Shining, but I would I would say it's a homage, to
Stuart Olson walking Jack and Wendy through the hotel. It's the same type of the two of them walking behind Griggs as he tours them through, and he explains this and he explains it's the same thing. And Jack and Wendy walking behind Olson. Yeah.
And the editing happens. They'll hit like a beam or something, and you can see that's where they kind of cut into the next. Yep. It's all flawless, dude. The way they shot everything, and that happens several times. There's another shot, just kind of the way the cinematography is on the entire hotel. Look at that. See, hotel. The entire hospital is perfect. There's a shot where Jeff's underground, and the camera moves from this underground hallway bunker to above the grass. Mm-hmm. And you can it's just shot so great. And you can see scope. It is practical. It's an actual, abandoned hospital. But it feels like a real place you could visit because technically you could have. I don't know if this place is open anymore or not. I'm guessing it's not.
We'll get to that.
Oh, okay. There you go. That's information. That's information I didn't even I didn't even have in my notes here. I didn't even actually, you know what? I think I tried to look it up. I might have found some information, but you probably have more than I do. Another thing, and I'm sure you'll agree with me with this one too, that the sound is really kind of just dynamic.
Love it. Oh, it's amazing.
I would say even between it has a very gentle, soft score, but all the Foley and sound effects and everything, it's almost mixed in a way where the score is so quiet that whenever something loud happens, or you hear a scream, or you hear, the flashback to Gordon interacting with his wife, and obviously the sessions, so fucking eerie, dude. You watch this by yourself in a dark room. And this movie has no figures standing in a shadow.
There's
looking
no jump
eerie
scares.
and creepy. Yeah. No. And it's like when you listen to even if you were to take away the rest of the film, the ending, the beginning, and you just listen to Mike sitting there in this little tiny fucking room, and Mary Hobbs, the woman that the tapes belong to, and they don't belong to her, but they're the hospitals, but they're of her. Yeah. And her transition between these different personalities, fucking scary. It's fucking scary shit, man.
It is.
Who am I speaking with?
Mary got a China doll from her mommy, and we can't find it now.
No, Princess, I haven't seen it. Maybe Billy knows where your China doll is.
Silly.
That's the catalyst for tension throughout the entire film. When Mike opens the box and he finds all the tapes and you see session 1, 2, 3, 4, from that point forward, as an audience member, it's a countdown. It's like a bomb timer for the rest of the film. We are building up because the name of the movie is Session 9. So we are building to what is Session 9.
Something bad is going to happen.
Exactly. It's the timer that's always there. And as the movie goes on, Mike becomes more and more obsessed with the tapes as well. He starts finding more reasons to sneak away and go downstairs and listen. And then he starts listening. Even when they all gone, he's there at night listening to them sometimes. Yeah. So as he does, every so often, he'll get frustrated. He'll get interrupted, and he's got to walk away because he's still working. So when he realizes, he's going to get caught listening to these things, he's got to leave. And now you as an audience are, you're feeling his frustration, I want to get to the next tape, And then when we leave from there, then we go to Gordon. And now we have his tension building. So it continues building. So as Mike gets more frustrated, as Gordon gets more frustrated, it's like they're tightening this rope on both ends for the audience. And the center of that rope says Session 9 right there. So they're building. So even when they take you away from one story, they put you they put you back into Gordon's story where they're building up the tension and they're increasing the information about what happened between him and his wife.
And when you're watching it, you're trying to figure out, obviously when you're watching it for a second or third time, you know what's going to happen. You know the ending of the film. But when you're watching it for the first time, you're trying to put the puzzle together. Like, what does Gordon's situation have to do with these tapes? Like, what's going on there? You don't even know until you get to the ending of the film, where you kind of can tell. Again, it's interpretation, dude. And when we talk about the ending, I'm sure you'll have. I have an interpretation. I'm sure yours is probably much better. Mine's a little kind of surface level. I just feel like you'll have a much better interpretation than me, because I feel like this is a movie you've watched way more than I have. I've probably only watched this movie, I'd say this might have been my 6th time watching it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm pretty.
I remember when.
Yeah, no. When I remember when it first came out, I did watch it at least 2 or 3 times. But in the last few years, like I said, I think I watched it maybe 5 years ago. It was just on Pluto TV or one of those channels, and then I hadn't watched it until again, and to cover it on the podcast.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to mention, and this is just something I really like about, because we kind of brushed over him a little bit, but Josh Lucas, the Hank character. There's 2 things. Also, before I jump into what I like about him, is it just me, or is Josh Lucas like a less Southern Matthew McConaughey? I don't know why. I don't know. I might be alone in this one, but
I can see it. I wouldn't have considered it, but I can see it now that you say it. Yeah.
Every movie I watch and this dude pops up in it, I'm always like, dude, he's just like, I don't want to say a dollar store version of Matthew McConaughey, but he just has and in this movie with the mustache and the little thing, and he's just in the hat.
He's in some really good movies, but he's not Dallas Buyers Club level. He's not McConaughey.
He's not that Dallas Buyers Club. He's not that Oscar award winning.
He's not that Wolf of Wall Street Buyers Club.
Interstellar.
Cadillac commercials.
Selling whiskey.
Boom, boom, boom.
Isn't he selling whiskey and shit now, Matthew McConaughey?
Yes.
Matthew McConaughey, so going off on a tangent here, has had such an interesting, he had like that weird run for 5 years where he was in Wolf of Wall Street, Interstellar, Dallas Buyers Club, and now he's just selling cars and cigars and shit to people. So interesting. And then he was
coming from Texas Chainsaw 4.
I know. And like literally was around for 15 years, 20 years, until he didn't blow up until maybe his late 40s, I think, is when he really had all that big resurgence where he was in all these movies. Yeah. And then now he's just selling bourbon.
Doing whatever the hell he wants. He's doing
fucking
anything
Cadillacs.
he wants.
He got the Oscar. He's done. Fucking, that's it. But yes, back to that character. So there's 2 things about the character of Hank that I really like in Session 9. First, I love, and the dude, all jokes aside, he is really good in this film. There's that scene that seems so real and authentic where he has it's a monologue talking about an exit plan. And he's telling Jeff, he's described, because Jeff's a young guy and he's learning, you don't want to do this for 25 years. What's your exit plan? And it's such a great scene because he's pointing out, and this goes back to what we said earlier about this group of men and how they all kind of have different personalities. He's pointing to each one of them and what their exit plan is in life. And he's talking about his own. It's such a great, that character, even though throughout the film, he's kind of skeezy, he's banging Phil's wife, girlfriend, whatever, he still seems human. And in that moment, it's like, I'm trying to plan shit out so I don't have to be here fucking getting rid of this asbestos forever. You know what I mean?
But at the same time, he's that guy who says that.
He's smooth. That's what I'm saying. Well, because the next thing I was going to mention, he has that whole scene where he's talking about that, and then and this is another thing I love about the movie, and it involves another great shot that I love. Hank ends up accidentally stumbling after this scene. He stumbles across a brick. There's like a hole in the wall, and coins and jewelry start to kind of pour out of it. He's like, oh shit, this has got to be worth something. And it kind of goes back because he literally a few minutes ago was talking about his exit plan, and he found a way to sort of.
See, that's why I say he's the guy who
off.
says he has an exit plan, but he doesn't.
Not yet.
He doesn't
no.
act. No, but yeah, exactly. He's just that guy. That guy that you work with.
Yeah.
You know, everybody works with that one guy who's always talking about what he's going to do, what he's going to do, what he's going to do. 25 years later, he's still working in the same. He's never done it because he didn't actually have a plan.
Yeah.
But the second he gets anything, he's going to take it and run with it, you know?
Yeah.
And then he's going to end up right back where he started. And that's what Hank is. And I think that's why he feels so real, because he's that guy who's just talking out his ass.
And
he's
even says
he's
it
a
to Jeff.
gambler.
Yeah.
He's fucking this girl just to piss her off. He doesn't actually have a plan in life. He leaves himself in a position where nothing is attached to him.
Yeah.
So he can drop anything at a moment and go chase some weird far off, long shot. And if it doesn't work, he can always come right back to where he was, because nobody was actually really connected to him.
No.
So nobody felt offended that he left in the first place.
Well, because they were just like, oh, typical Hank. That's kind of the way they feel.
Exactly.
But
he's that guy.
But that performance and that scene was perfect.
Yes.
He even has a line
Absolutely.
where I think he says you'll end up, I think, at 30 years old gargling on the shit that they're breathing in, something along those lines. And that's
when he says, "Why aren't you wearing a mask?" He's like, "Oh, it's all right. I got an exit plan."
Basically saying that he is
already
that
too late
guy.
for him.
He already is the guy he's talking about. Even though I love how he's smoking cigarettes while fucking removing.
It's too late for
asbestos.
him. Exactly.
It's so funny. But yeah, after that scene, that great scene with Hank, he ends up finding out, going back to the other scene, because this is another fucking great shot, and just probably my favorite set piece in the whole movie. Is you've got Hank, he's just working, and he finds these jewels, and it's like rings and coins.
He tucks it back into the wall then.
It's a bunch of shit, and he ends up, and you already know when you're watching this character, okay, he's going to come back when they're gone, take all this shit, and try to pawn it and get money.
Yeah.
What's great about this shot, and it kind of tricking the audience with the whole paranormal aspect of this movie is, and this kind of goes to like tropey haunted house movies. So you've got Hank, this brick, he removes this brick, he's pulling out all this shit, all these rings and all this jewelry and all this money and all these coins are covered in dust, and you're thinking, oh, it's in the wall, it's old. And the camera flips. We see the other side of the wall, and it's the crematorium in the morgue. And all that dust and shit is ashes from all the people that were burned in the crematorium. So just a great scene. And then you as the audience, and this is how I think the film tricks people that watch it, you're like, okay, something bad's going to happen, and it does happen to him, because he's stealing from these spirits.
From the dead,
Yeah, these people that are in, or what you think is in this building. And, when you think of like tropey shit that happens in ghost story, movies, or just any kind of ghost, anything, whether it's a story, a film, whatever, it usually goes back to like this artifact. The Amityville films made a million sequels.
Yeah,
it's
the
like,
cursed object. Yeah, there's one object
you
that
love,
does it.
You love stuff like that. So it's like, okay, I stole this ashtray.
He puts the ring on his finger, and it's like, ooh, whose ring is that?
And you think like, oh shit, that's who's because right after the scene.
Because now it's the first time. Yeah, as soon as he pulls it out, You get the POV camera of something coming at him, and and you assume, as soon as he pulled this out, taking that haunted house trope, he released the spirit right there.
Yeah.
And they play on that.
And that's
absolutely.
That's probably the only time in the movie where you see a dark figure, like hidden in the shadows, like really brief.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the only time you see something. And it turns out that, you find out what that was at the end of the film.
I assume we're going to spoil it eventually, but it's okay. Leave it. Yeah, we'll leave it till we get there. Wait till we get there.
To the ending. Is there anything else you want to point out? Any other stuff that you really loved about the movie? I have one or two more things I want to mention before we get into the ending.
Yeah, I mean, I have two different. It's more about my interpretations of the films. Of it. I mean, I don't know if you want to get into that now or not.
I do want to point out two more things. One more really fucking. So David Caruso,
Mm-hmm.
I like him a lot in this movie.
He's great.
He's fucking
Fuck
great.
You.
And that's exactly what I was going to find.
I
now,
knew it.
I will admit, fuck you.
That
Dude,
fucking line.
Dude, the fucking line delivery, I was like, all right, dude. And it's funny because every time I see David, what is he on? Is it one of those SVU shows? He's on one of those.
He's on CSI.
CSI,
He was
I
on,
don't know.
yeah, he was on CSI for a while.
But yeah, every
He
time
was
I think,
yeah.
I know it was one of those
CSI
shows.
Miami.
Yeah, and David Caruso. Every time I see him, I think of I'm pretty sure it was King of New York, not New Jack City. But in that movie, he gets killed he's like a corrupt cop in that movie. It might be. I forget. I forget if it's New Jack City or King of New York. Both of those movies are great, and I haven't watched them in a while. But in that movie, he's like a shitty. He's really good at playing shitty characters,
shitty cops,
shitty cops, and shitty fucking just like shitty. It's King of New York. I'm looking right at it. So
King
in that movie, he gets murdered in the back of because he's a corrupt cop, and it's like he is so good at playing a dick. Like in this movie, that line, "fuck you," like just everything about it. He's just perfect casting. He's hamming it up a little bit, a little overacting, but it's besides maybe the "fuck you." He's super aggressive, but it works for the character of Phil.
Yeah.
It's great, and I just love that. I love the performance, and I'm 90% sure we're not the first people to mention the "fuck you."
Dude, even in the things they all say it's the best line of the movie. A bunch of like the producer, the director, they all say it's the best line of the movie. And fuck you. It's the delivery, everything. It's perfect.
It's so ridiculous, but I think at that point you're like an hour and 10 minutes into the movie because it happens towards the end. It's like the last act of the film when they're all kind of everything's getting chaotic. And it's just so funny, dude. Like I forgot about it. And I'm
I'll never forget about it.
Fucking
never. I used to say it like that to people all the time. It was a quotable line for me.
So good.
Fuck you.
Hey, fuck you.
So Brad Anderson said that so USA Films produced this. Okay, they were USA Films was one of the producers.
I did write that down in my notes. I was like, "Wow, I haven't seen that logo in many movies."
I know, right?
USA Films logo. I was like, "All right, cool."
So they produced this, and Brad Anderson says when they were casting that Caruso was already working on CSI with USA, so they suggested him for casting, and he said he wasn't on my list of people that I wanted, but when we saw him, he's like, great. He was great. I loved it. Awesome. The producer says that USA Films came in a quarter of the way through shooting. That they weren't on the production from the beginning. About a quarter of the way through, they had already started producing. They'd already started shooting the film. And then USA Films came on a quarter of the way through the shoot. And he said, and then they started, he's like, and so they brought in finishing funds and marketing budget and stuff like that. And he's like, and then they had their accountants there and their other producers there. He said, we started the shoot and then they came to set. He's like, it was really nice to have them there on set. He's like, but the tension went up because suddenly now we have people looking over our shoulders and they're checking time and they're watching overtime. They're watching budgets. They're watching what we're spending. You know, he said, and it got very, very stressful that way. So he's like, him as a producer, he had to kind of be that barrier so that the director and the DP could just shoot the movie and the producer could keep them happy. So, and so then that would mean that Caruso was signed because CSI started 2001 as well.
I didn't know
and
that.
he did a guest spot in. There was a CSI. It was like 4 different CSI movies.
There's a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah. So the first one was 2001. He guested in 2003 on one of the shows, and then that character got his spin-off, and that's CSI Miami,
Gotcha.
which started 2 years after this movie. Okay. But he'd already been on Law and Order. He'd already been on a couple other cop shows, like as a bit character here and there. So this is why I say they're two opposing stories. Anderson says that they got him from USA Films and they suggested him. But the producer says USA Films didn't come on until a quarter of the way through. So where the hell did David Caruso come from?
He just fucking out of thin air. He just showed up on set.
One day. He's like, I'm
fuck
staying
you.
here.
I'm going to be in this movie. That's
it.
exactly what he did.
So that's really weird. So in one he came from CSI, and in the other one he got CSI as a result of working with USA Films on this. I don't know which is correct. I have no idea.
If I read correctly, I believe this was the last USA Films production too. After this, they went bankrupt or folded or something. I'm pretty sure. I think I read that while I was looking through some trivia. That this was okay. So here you go. I actually have it right in front of me. So filmed during the summer of 2000, but was released during the summer a year later in a limited release. USA Films, they were going bankrupt, and this was the last film produced by USA Films, and it's now under the Universal Pictures banner, which Universal owns USA. Yeah. So that makes sense. Yeah. So this was the last film. Funny enough, after you telling me that whole, behind the scenes situation with them, that this was the last film they produced.
The last film they produced, yeah. So, I mean, obviously they kept producing TV shows.
Well, Universal Studios, Universal Pictures
USA
owns them now.
like network.
Yeah.
And,
USA
CSI and that's what I mean. Yeah, that whole umbrella. So since we're talking about casting, Brandon Sexton plays Jeff. They actually did hire him because they saw him in Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Oh.
They wanted him. They wanted that kid with that attitude.
Yeah.
They wanted that shitty little kid.
Honestly,
he was cast because of that.
if I had something I didn't like about the movie or something that was kind of a con, would probably be his character. His character's not that he's useless, but I feel like out of the group, he is probably the weakest performance.
I could see that, and he felt that way. He actually felt that way, that he felt he was learning a lot when he got there. He felt like, I'm on this movie. He saw the other actors, and he's like, oh, my God. I don't belong here.
He's probably my only sort of just kind of...
He has some weak... Yeah, some of his delivery is like, you're trying too hard. That's how it felt. Like when they're teasing him and he's drooling, he's doing all that. When they're outside having lunch, you're right. He feels like he's forcing the performance. He's not as natural as the others. He does kind of stand out. But I think that does say to his age and that he is just younger and less experienced than the rest of them.
Yeah, he's good because I like the whole thing. I forget what it's called, when Fear of the Dark, because Jeff's character, scared Nyctophobia. That's probably the only thing about his character that adds anything to the setting of the film. But otherwise, besides being Gordon's nephew, I just felt like he didn't really add much.
Yeah.
To the cast. He was just it was like a reason to have a younger guy because they're all, it's probably Jeff and then Hank are the two younger guys, and the rest of them are a little older. So I don't know. I just like rewatching it again and watching it these two times. I felt like I was like, all right, if that character didn't exist, this movie would still be awesome.
Mary, I want you to try to remember what happened 22 years ago on Christmas night in Lowell.
That's where we grew up.
Yes. Can you tell me what happened that night in Lowell?
Nothing happened.
Mary, something did happen. That's why we have these sessions, to help you remember, so you can get better, okay?
No.
Okay, so there's two things that I do want to kind of dive into. One being one of my kind of, I guess they're both kind of subtext within the film. One of them was actually something I never really considered too much before, but okay, so I have the Second Sight release, and that comes with a nice little book, and there are 4 essays in it. There are 4 different essays, 3 essays in it. One of them is called The Spectral Women of Session 9 by Alexandra Heller-Nicholas, and she also hosts one of a Twisted Collage which is another one of the special features on there. So I read her essay. The other two were, one of them is on the location itself. Yeah, one of them is called The Snake Pit Called Home, and the other one is The House of Pain, Horror Genres Fascinations with Abandoned Asylums. Now, hers is the one that I read. I didn't read the other two yet. I'm going to, but I haven't. I'm glad I did, because hers is the first essay in the book. And it gives this whole other side of the movie, which I always kind of saw, but not to the depth that she did. So it's about 10 pages. I'm going to break it down. Essentially what she's saying is you have the whole movie is all men. The movie about men. But it's not about men. It's actually about men and how they communicate with women. Okay? Now, look based on everything we've said, what is that? What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
Everything you said. Think about this. The entire film, every single character is motivated by the woman or a woman in their life. So the hospital itself, they call it she. The guy, when he explains it, he says she. It's the name of the ward. He calls it she.
I didn't even pick up on that. Wow.
Yes, he calls it she. Mary Hobbs, the patient, another woman. Her main alter that she uses, that she personally uses the most, is the princess. Okay, Patricia Willard is the woman whose story that Mike tells, the satanic ritual abuse victim who shuts the hospitals down, is a woman. Gordon's wife, Wendy, his daughter, Emma, Phil's ex-wife and Hank's girlfriend, Amy. And we see her. The time we see her in the film is when is just like that short montage of Hank being yelled at by her. And he's just oblivious to her. He's just sitting with a beer, watching TV, and she's behind him yelling, and he doesn't give a shit what she's saying. And the fact that that's the source of tension between Hank and Phil, and he doesn't even love her. He's just doing it to piss off Phil. Jeff is Gordon's nephew from his wife's sister. Okay? The deleted scenes has a homeless woman living in the hotel, living in the hotel, living in the hospital.
They cut that out completely. Like it's completely
removed
from the movie.
They said they took it out because when they did test screenings, people were confused and they thought that it was Mary Hobbs.
Yeah,
they thought it was Mary. Yeah, and it was confusing people. They're like, even though it's a black woman, she's covered in dust and everything, so you really can't tell. She's all gray dusted out, So people thought that was Mary living, even though we see Mary's grave. In the movie, people thought that was her, and they said, okay, it's too confusing. Let's streamline it.
Yeah, you would never know she was even in the film. Like they cut her out like completely. It's crazy.
Yeah. The generator, the actual generator that keeps going out is named Jenny.
I didn't even know. I didn't pick up on any of this, dude.
Yeah. The bar that Phil is seen drinking in is Molly's bar.
By the way, there's a jack-o'-lantern right over his right shoulder.
Yes.
Did you notice that? It's a Halloween film.
It's a Halloween movie.
Unintentionally, there's literally a jack-o'-lantern cutout right over David Caruso's right or left shoulder. I forget which one. And it's clear as day right there. So I thought that was funny. So I had to mention it.
Of course you found the hidden pumpkin.
There you go.
And then small detail, but it's a detail. When all the coins come out, the coin that Hank is drawn to is a silver Lady Liberty dollar. And that's the coin that he finds on the roof later.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think
It's
about
the
that.
Lady
Wow.
Liberty dollar. So there's all these connections of women being the catalyst to what's happening in them, and there's just this female. And then she goes in even deeper, the fact that it's written by a guy and it's directed by a guy, it's produced by a guy. The DP, the costume designers, the set designer, all women. Yeah, lots of women behind the scenes on this, and all the women in the story influence these men.
Wow,
Yeah, and it was, like I said, it was a 10-page thing, so she really gets into a lot more of this. I just wanted to break it down and show, find this stuff. It's really, really interesting, And I was like, wow, I always knew, I always saw the female thing, but how deep it went,
Like I would have never picked up on the coin I would have never picked up on Jenny, the generator. There's a lot of
the generator. Exactly, Jenny, the generator.
It's like little nuances of like female. I guess just aspects of just female presence throughout the whole film.
Exactly, and there's so much of it. It's like, okay, this isn't a coincidence.
No,
it's one of those things they clearly put in there, but they just don't. They don't talk about it. Like here, you either catch it or you don't.
Because the only other movie I could think of that does something like this, minus the Fiend, is The Thing. The Thing is all men, but there's no real hints at any female anything.
Not that I can think of
in that movie. So that's kind of the only. Honestly, those two movies would make a good double feature. Very different types of films, but both just men stuck in one place, kind of dealing with crazy shit that's going on. So you're right. That's cool that there's a lot of just kind of undertones of a female presence throughout throughout the whole film, even though there's no female.
There's no real woman
besides
in the movie.
His wife and the girlfriend.
And the wife is played by one actress, and then it's a different actress who does her voice.
Weird. Yeah, and the baby. I guess the baby's a female, Emma.
Yes, it's a little girl.
So it's that's
little Emma.
Weird how. Wow, that's fucking crazy.
See what I mean? Like, it's so interesting. Like, wow.
Yeah, interesting.
I never considered all that.
I never, like, watching it, besides, besides the characters that are female, I didn't pick up on any of those other things. So,
well, I have another.
Really cool.
Then there's my thing. Now, we used to talk a long time ago that Mario had told me this. He said that there was there's a theory that went around that the movie is, none of this is actually. Not that it's not happening, but there's a reason for it happening, is that they're all suffering from asbestos poisoning. And that's where the hallucinations come from, and that's where all this stuff comes from. There's some weight to that, but like Mario had told me a long time ago that Brad Anderson had said that, and I have not seen anything of Brad Anderson saying that, yes, they all have asbestos poisoning.
That would be a cop-out if that was the reason why all this was happening to them.
Well, the way Mario said it to me was that that was what he wrote in the script. He followed the symptoms of asbestos poisoning when they were writing the script and what was happening to them. So it's not actually that it's happening, but it can be interpreted that way because he used the symptoms of it to his aggression and his their fatigue and and all that. Okay.
Never once though in the movie do I feel like that's what's triggering anything because. There's barely a cough. Like, there's only the scene where Jeff gets covered and everything. That's about it.
And that's it, exactly.
Yeah. And they mention it, their mask and stuff, but besides it being their job, you kind of forget about it halfway through the movie. Like, it's just their job,
So I have a different perspective. Not perspective, but I guess it goes back to the dual stories. In the end, we find out that Gordon has killed his wife and his daughter and the dog.
Poor dog.
He kills the fucking dog.
You
hear the dog, arp, 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 and you hear him kick the dog and kill the fucking dog. Like, you hear that he strangled his baby. Like, you actually hear. It was that's like a really
twisted.
Creepy sound.
Yeah.
How the babies you actually hear the babies gurgling.
Yeah.
Like,
it's fucking horrible.
Woo. Yeah, it's really twisted. Okay. So that's what happens and that's what you find out, that this whole time his wife has been dead this whole week. He killed her like the first night he came home and he broke. That thing hit him, and he not only the water hit him, burned his leg, and he hit her, and then he beat her to death. And then the baby then the dog was barking, so he killed the dog. And you see the dog on the leash outside. And I wonder, did he kill the fucking dog on the front lawn? Because the dog was tied up outside of the house.
Probably. Gordon's a sick.
Outside. He walk outside and stomp the dog to death.
Probably. He killed the wife, killed the dog, and then ran back into the house, killed the baby.
Yeah. Then the baby's crying, so he kills the baby. So this is what happened, and he broke days ago, which is what David Caruso's character keeps saying. Like, he knows something's wrong. Okay, you have David Caruso, who so you have Phil the day after Hank finds all those. He doesn't show up to work the next day because something hit him. Again, the camera went at him and something hit him, and he doesn't show up to work that day. Phil then calls his wife, ex-wife, to find out, and she says that, oh yeah, he came home and said he found his ticket and he's leaving and everything. That's a bullshit phone call, because that's not what fucking happened. Which means that Phil already knows that something happened to Hank, and he already gets the feeling that Gordon has something to do with it.
There's some secret there.
Yes, and he makes up this story, this performance of calling her on the phone in front of everyone, almost like he's covering up for Gordon. Okay? Now, go back to Mary. Mary's story is that it was Christmas. I think it was Christmas. And Mary was, I think she was climbing a ladder or something, and her brother knocked her over and she fell over and she broke her doll that she had gotten for Christmas. And in a fit of rage, she kills her brother, and then she kills her mother, and she kills her father. She kills the whole family in a fit of rage after breaking this doll. Okay? So, parallel that to Gordon. Okay, now, Gordon is Mary. Mike is the doctor uncovering Mary's psychosis. Jeff is the princess, innocent and ignorant to everything. Phil is Billy. He hides the crime and covers it up so that Mary doesn't know what she did, protects her from the truth, shields her through manipulation, which is what Phil did, made up a whole story as to what happened to Hank so that Gordon doesn't remember. In the beginning, Gordon's in the car. This is where we start. We start with him, and he's in the car, and he's talking. We don't see who he's talking to. And then the camera cuts, and you see that Phil is in the car with him, and they're talking, okay? When you go to the end, after Gordon killed his family a couple days ago, he didn't kill Phil. He used the lobotomy thing on Phil, and it's still in Phil's eye. Phil is laying on the ground. He kills him. He uses that on Phil. He kills Jeff out in the parking lot. He kills Mike from behind. He runs up from behind and clocks Mike and kills him. And he killed Phil at some point. So everybody's dead. And now we have Gordon talking to Phil. Even though Phil's dead, he's standing there talking to him, having a conversation back and forth. Again, shot the same way we shot them in the beginning. Of they're in separate medium shots talking, but they're never in the same frame. And in the opening, we see them talking separately, and then we get a shot of them next to each other, finally out of the and they're together. In the end of the film, we do the opposite: medium, back and forth, and then when we go wide, Gordon's all by himself.
He's by himself, yeah.
Yes,
it's an eerie shot. That's a fucking eerie shot,
yes.
Dude.
That's why I said earlier the opening shot sets up the final shots. Okay, so that mirrors the end. Phil's not really there. It's filmed the same way. So Phil is Billy. He's also partially Simon because he's antagonizing Gordon through the course of the week. He pushes him and he makes him feel. He tells everybody that he's crazy. He says Gordon's losing it. He taunts him. He pushes his buttons through the course of the week. He's clearly trying to do something here, you know? It's also Billy trying to protect Mary from the truth. Okay? The phone call, blah, blah, blah. Hank is now almost a completely fourth personality, or Hank is the one that I really, he can go in different directions, but I think his character might represent the exit plan. The reality that this is where Gordon wants to be. He wants out of this, and he wants to live his life. So Hank can represent that. The exit plan that Gordon doesn't have, which is why he's the first one to go.
And yeah, he's the one that brings up the exit plan and talks about how everyone has to have one. So
yes, he's the exit plan. He's the first victim, and then Gordon realizes that there's no way out and it's too late, so now he has to kill them all.
Yeah.
So that's the other mirrored story that I see, and this is how This is why Gordon never actually interacts with the tapes. There's no point where they actually interact with Mike. He never finds out what Mike is doing.
Yeah, it's like Mike's. It's his own little secret the entire film.
And Mike never finds out that Gordon killed his family.
No, Mike is completely oblivious.
He's
to what's
killed
going
before
on.
he finds that out.
All
exactly.
he knows is that the smack happened. That's all he finds out.
Yeah, he hit his wife and that's it. That's all he knows. So these two concurrent storylines are happening and they actually never intersect, but they are fully parallel with each other.
Yeah.
Gordon and Mary are the same character. And Simon is the final voice we hear in the end. Simon is that breaking point. That moment, in the moment that Mary landed on the doll, that's when Simon took over. Her moment of, and that's when Simon took over Gordon. When that water, the hot boiling water hit him, Simon took, because he, as he says, in a very creepy moment, the doctor says, because Mary lives in the mouth. Billy lives in the stomach, so he comes up when the princess lives in Mary's mouth and Billy lives in her stomach. Mm-hmm. And you hear the doctor say, Billy, where do you live? And he says, I live in the weak and the wounded.
Yeah. It's
and it
twisted.
It's
great.
Love it.
Yeah, it's great.
Love
and
it.
that's all
amazing.
Happening when it's cutting back and forth, right? Between Gordon and the wall and with all the pictures and stuff.
And you hear Simon telling, do it, Gordon. Do it.
It's so scary. It's so scary,
it's
dude.
Amazing.
yeah, man. It's weird because when you go and we've been saying it, it's like this isn't even a ghost story. It's not.
No, it has the elements of it.
It's got the elements, but I guess that would be the twist ending of this movie if you think about it. It's not supernatural.
No.
No.
It's about mental illness.
Yeah, exactly. And even with the character of Hank, when he vanishes and we do see him again and then he vanishes again, it's not because of some spirit or something like that. It's because the fucking guy's brain is severed and he doesn't even know what he's doing. He doesn't know where he is.
Yeah, that's it.
He's
he lost
out of his mind. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it just shows you that it's just kind of crazy when you think about it, how the movie leads you one direction and then that last 15 minutes, 10 minutes, a different genre of movie. It's not even and people say that about The Shining. They're like, was the hotel haunted or was it all just Jack's losing it?
You have no idea.
But then at the same time, speaking of Wendy, because that's Shelley Duvall's name in The Shining. I just realized that too. His wife, Gordon's wife's name's Wendy, and I didn't even pick up on that. Wendy. There you go, two Wendys. Another Shining reference. But, when you watch The Shining and to kind of compare the two movies, because I mentioned it earlier, the only thing that kind of throws that kind of theory out in The Shining is that Wendy does see the blood, but it also could be played up that she's fucking losing it too. So it's a similar...
I have a theory about that.
You have a theory about that too? Maybe we shouldn't get into that because maybe we'll do The Shining eventually.
We're not going to get into that. That'll be that's like an anniversary show because that's a long one. You know me, I can do The Shining.
Our shows, when we do them together, are long normally, so that'll be a 5-hour episode.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, even with this movie, you find out it's basically just this guy's kind of downward spiral into some into literally just fucking flipping out. Kind of crazy. It's scary, and the scariest thing about this is, and shit like this really happens. You think of this is a dark fucking story, but Chris Benoit, the wrestler, killed his whole fucking family, but instead he committed, killed himself. But with this, it's like if something like that happened and the guy just went on with life, like he just continued going in, clocking in every day, knowing full well at home.
Kind of answer that.
Wait, what? Do you have an answer for that?
A little bit. It's based on a true story.
Yes, I think I did see that when I was looking through stuff. It's a true story.
When they wrote the script, first off, it was based on Danvers because both Brad Anderson and
He's
Steven,
from there, right? I think.
Yeah,
Brad
they're both
Anderson,
from Massachusetts. So it was an area that they drove past, and they saw the hospital. They saw the hospital. It's this big hospital up on a hill. So they wrote it based on that alone. Like they wanted to write a story for this. But Brad Anderson had heard a story about a guy who lost his shit one night, and he cut out his wife's heart and lungs after she burned dinner.
Wow.
And he apparently took her heart and lungs, put them on stakes, and put them out in the yard.
Oh, God.
Like, yes, this guy lost it.
Wow. What drives someone to get to that goddamn point? God damn, man, have a drink. Jesus
Simon
Christ.
does. But that's actually where the story comes from. What drives this to happen?
Yeah.
So that was the impetus of the story for Brad, is what Brad Anderson, what is that evil that lives inside that can cause someone to go from normal to cutting your wife's heart and lungs. Like,
yeah.
Jesus.
At least they didn't add that to this movie. Jesus, that would have been a bit. Feed it to the dog.
No,
maybe.
Instead, we just listen to a dog get kicked to death and a baby get
choked,
strangled. You know,
it's fucking dark, man.
It is.
I tell you what, it's smart writing, man. To just kind of combine a haunted house movie,
it's amazingly
and true crime.
It's amazingly.
I forget what story it is, but there's that on Netflix they had that new Unsolved Mysteries, and there was that story about that guy who murdered his whole family. And then vanished. And the dogs, too. Buried the dogs, buried the whole family in the house, disappeared. And it's just crazy how you take something like that, a true crime story, and then flip it to make you think, make your audience think it's supernatural.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, you're like, no, this guy's fucking crazy. That's basically it. He's fucking nuts.
That's it.
Wild shit, man. Wild.
Yeah.
Has Billy told you what happened next?
Billy only tells me nice things, Mr. Doctor. Like that I'm pretty.
Princess? Was Simon there that night?
Simon? I don't know any Simon.
So you asked earlier, is the place still open?
Yes.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So it was a build. They built this in 1890, I believe, and it stayed as a hospital until about 1991, and that's when it shut down. Eventually, that's when it finally shut down. It had opened, closed, open, closed, open, closed. There was a thing at the time where they said that a lot of offices were closed on Fridays during that summer. It was a summer Friday thing.
Yeah.
It was just a thing. So doctors' offices, things like that, they closed on Fridays. When this place closed, it was overnight. So everybody went home Thursday night, and it just didn't reopen Monday. So one thing that they said when they got there, they found offices in there where it was like people were planning on, like we all went through this with the pandemic. Everybody left their offices on Wednesday or Thursday, and then you came back 6 months later and your shit was in the same exact spot it was in. And they said they found a lot of things like that had been there for 10 years untouched. Like somebody was coming back to finish their work on Monday.
Creepy.
Yes, exactly. Pencils just sitting in the middle of desks and people's coffee cups and stuff. Cigarette ash, they're like, these things were just there. Like people had, I'm going to say maybe in the last 8 or 9 years or so, it's been reopened, but it's not a hospital anymore. It is now luxury condos. The main building, the front, which is the Bat Head, is still there. The Bat Wings have been demolished and torn down.
Bummer.
But the main building is still there, and they've built extra buildings outside. The gymnasium and theater where Mike is killed, that was a separate building. That building's gone now, and it's a pool area actually. Yeah,
wow.
It's the outdoor pool area.
Wow, they renovated that whole place. It probably is so fancy looking now.
Oh, it is. It's
you wouldn't
full
even
on.
No, probably you couldn't even tell.
Well, you can because the building is still there. The facade is still the same. It's different color, but the front of the building is recognizable. It's you see the paint there, but you look at the shape. The shape is the same.
Isn't Danvers right outside of Salem?
Yes. It's Boston. It's outside Boston.
Gonna have to make a trip out there. I want to see this building in person, man. So.
the graveyard is real. That shot of Gordon sitting there when he's leaning on the tree and they pan over to the graveyard, it is real. I don't know if that specific location of the graveyard is real, but the headstones did look like that and is there. There was a preservation society that went in, and when the place was turned into condos, that thing is actually far enough away from the hotel that you can't actually from the apartments that you couldn't kind of see it, and it was all overgrown with grass, and the people who bought the land did nothing with it and they just left it.
Oh, they abandoned it. Wow.
Yeah, so these people came, these preservers came, and 700 patients were buried there. 700 to 800 people were buried in this graveyard, and they all have those little looking markers. And they are just numbers, as you see in the movie.
They say it in the movie, yeah.
Yes, they are just numbers. Those are all because they're all patients that when the place shut down, they had no family or any over the years, when they shut down, of all the 100 years the place was open, they had no family or anybody to claim them when they died. So they were buried in and given just that marker with numbers. A preservationist came in, they found them inside, they cleared the grass out, they went through, and then they went through all the records and they matched the numbers to the people, and they gave them they actually had real grave markers made.
Oh, so their names are on them now.
Yeah, so those, okay. Well, the stand-up tombstones are gone.
Okay.
And now there's just little flat markers in the ground.
Yeah, like the square ones. Yeah, I've seen like a big, large, like kind of for soldiers and things like that. They do that
exactly.
Sometimes. Yeah,
now there's that, and it has most of the people they could figure it out, and now they have, and there's a like a memorial with all their names on these big plaques that are out there. So
it looks
if you do see, it does look completely different, and it looks pretty now.
Okay.
So like it looks like respectful.
Yeah. That's funny.
But something interesting, which is funny because I thought about the Changeling when we did this, and we talked about the Changeling and the people buried and all that, and how sometimes you still find bodies and you still find this and stuff. Those what do they call them? The word is
the memorial,
the headstones.
The headstones.
Yeah, those weirdly shaped headstones. They're still there.
Oh wow!
There is literally a pile of them. They're stacked on the side, like at the edge of the forest.
Oh, interesting.
And they're stone with iron, with like a piece of iron inside to keep the shape of it.
Yeah.
And they're all just kind of stacked up like a pile of bricks.
That probably looks fucking creepy too if you saw it in person.
Well, you really can't tell what they are because they just look like a pile. It looks like a pile of bricks
stacked up. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what they are. They're still there, and it reminded me of the Changeling. Like, even when some big company comes in and buys the fucking thing, they still don't have any plan for the dead people who were buried there.
It's the least of their worries. They're just like, whatever.
Regardless, there's no plan for the unclaimed
They haven't
dead.
watched all these movies. They're fucking up. It's funny you mentioned the Changeling because there's a shot in this, and I feel like it's just the standard haunted house shot.
Yes.
There's a shot of the building with fog. I was like, all right, okay, gotta. Even though you find out this isn't a haunted house, there is no haunting.
The fog. And
there's
the wheelchair.
Still fog. And the wheelchair, yes.
And the wheelchair, the super wheelchair.
Which I'm assuming was Mary's. They never really
No, it's just that is Mary's
symbol.
Room though.
Yeah,
that coincidentally.
It's insinuated.
Yeah, coincidentally, the way it's actually set up, that light coming through the door that lights up, that actually is the room that they turned into Mary's room.
Yeah, that wheelchair just so happened to be sitting right there, and that's kind of because it's the symbol of the movie. Like whenever you see this movie, the cover, you always see that chair, and the chair never springs to life. It doesn't attack anyone, like in the Changeling, like that wheelchair. This one is just there. But I do like how it's funny because this movie has that. I feel like all good haunted house movies have a symbol. And that's
that's it. That
Section
wheelchair.
9's is that chair. So
the wheelchair and the two of them.
Yes, you're right. The reel to reel. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We should go into what versions we watched. I'll start because mine we both hinted at what versions we watched, but let's run through the versions we watched. Yours obviously is way better than mine, and that's kind of the depressing part of
I have
this.
I have that same copy.
So yes, I watched the 2001 DVD that I believe I bought.
I'm pretty sure it's the French Canadian release.
Yeah, I'm sure because I do see French Canadian. I see English and then French on the opposite side here. I don't have the case because of the story I told at the front. At the beginning, of the episode. All that's on this is there's deleted scenes, which one of them is the homeless lady that's living in there. There's the alternate ending. My disc, something's wrong with it. I discovered that while rewatching it. Some of the special features were skipping and fucked up. That's what inspired me to buy a new copy of this movie.
You bought the Scream Factory version, okay.
Yes. Which is not as cool as yours. But there's also this story to screen, which I believe is a documentary about what you talked about. And
I did watch that.
I couldn't watch it, unfortunately.
No. Yeah, that is an old one. It's literally some of the storyboards next to the scenes and you know and how they shot it. Yeah.
And then there's a commentary with Brad Anderson, and I believe the writer as well. The guy that plays Mike.
I think two commentaries. One with Brad and Steven.
Or together. They might be together.
Oh, you have the original. Yes, it's the two of them.
It's Brad and Steven together. Then there's a featurette called The Haunted Palace, which I did watch, which is just a standard kind of featurette about the movie, the making of the movie, floating head interviews, trailers, stills, trailers for other movies, I think, are on this. Standard stuff you'd find in a 2001 DVD.
Hey.
The movie does not look great. It looked great in 2001 on this DVD, but no longer looks great because of the version Manny has. And I'll let you continue here, sir.
So this is the Second Sight release. It is a box set.
A very beautiful box.
Yes. It is Region B. It is in Australia. Second Sight is an Australian company. They do incredible releases. So it comes with the book that I showed you earlier with essays and some production photos and stuff, It also comes with lobby cards, which is awesome. Comes with 5 or 6 lobby cards. Yeah. So you got upside down. You got Mike there. You got that's a good shot right there.
Yeah, with the mask. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's fucking cool, man. Why didn't we get this release in the U.S.? What the hell?
Yeah, I don't know. I do not know.
So weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
maybe it was a bigger hit in Australia. Who knows?
No. Well, Second Sight does this. They're like Vinegar Syndrome and Arrow. Yeah. They do big special releases.
But you have to have a region-free player to play this version.
Yes,
right?
This is Region B. It is Region B. It is also 2-disc.
Very nice.
It is a 2-disc set. The second disc, pretty much everything on the second disc is new except for Twisted Collage, which I believe is on the Scream Factory release.
Yeah.
Twisted Collage is about 20 minutes, and it's written by it's by the woman who does that essay that I talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. So she's on that, so you'll probably be able to see that. On this, there's also the Return to Danvers is the one which I believe is on that one as well that you have.
Well, no, I don't think that's on this one. No.
Okay, so that's on the Scream Factory then.
Yeah, at the Scream Factory.
Because it is older. I know that one.
Yeah, this one has. I don't think that's on this disc because it's Story to Screen and then the Haunted Palace. I think is
Haunted Palace. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the other one's on this release. That's all new stuff, like supplemental stuff for that special release.
Well, Return to Danvers is on Scream Factory for sure because I saw the Scream Factory logo.
I have not seen that one yet for obvious reasons.
So you'll see that when you get it.
Yes, when I get it.
Horror's Hollowed Grounds is Sean. I can't remember his last name. The guy he goes to the locations and everything. I think that. That might be on the Scream Factory release as well because I think he usually does that for Scream Factory. So you'll probably see that and you'll see everything. And he shows the new hotel. That's the dude that
goes to like horror locations.
Yes, yeah,
right? Not horror locations, but horror film locations.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to where they shot the movies.
The guy with the short black hair.
I forget that guy's name too.
Yeah, Sean something. I can't remember his last name. Sean something. It's usually him or Mike Gingold that do these things. Sometimes they do it together. Usually Mike, but Mike Gingold tends to do it with Ted Gogan.
Okay.
The director of We Are Still Here.
Yeah, we talked about it when I think they had one for the Changeling. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so these are the two teams that do this. So what's really cool about that is, which again, I'm pretty sure it's on the Scream Factory, is that you'll see it. Sean actually went to the hospital in 2004 just for the hell of it.
Oh, okay.
And he recorded a whole bunch of stuff. So he actually has footage from, he was like, before he did a TV show, before he did this at all, he just went with some friends and they broke into the place. They snuck into the hospital and wandered around and he found all the locations that they shot in.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So he's hosting it from outside the new condo building, but he narrates the old footage. So you'll probably get to see all that. That's really cool stuff.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
really, really awesome.
I love shit like that, so I'm always open to, like, I just like watching stuff that shows where they shot movies and even I like really going to like places where, like, some of your favorite films have been shot. It's always fucking cool.
Oh yeah,
it's kind of surreal. Sometimes it's surreal when you're there. It's like, wow,
it is.
I'm behind the Michael Myers hedge. Like, it's fucking weird, dude. Like, that's just how
they just announced Jacob's Ladder.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
The day before, I happened to be with Mike Gingold at the Thrust premiere.
Yeah.
And he showed me a couple of photos of them doing the location for Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He showed me a couple of it. He was like, don't say anything. But then the next day they announced it. I was like, okay, I can talk about it now.
I already knew.
yes. The very next day they announced it. And he showed me, he took a picture of himself on the stairs, like the poster.
Oh, cool.
And he showed me that, and he posed just like that. He showed me a couple. That was really cool.
Awesome.
So separately on this, you have a bunch. So on that second disc is a bunch of interviews. There's a 36-minute interview called "The Dark Side" with the director. The 24 minutes with Stephen Gavaden, the Mike.
Yeah.
24-minute interview with him, 23-minute interview with the production designer, which is really cool because she tells you how they did all of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, all the building the morgue and the graffiti, the pictures on the walls. Some of that was there, a lot of it wasn't, and they had to. Something else I realized watching that is I recognized some of the photos that they used on the walls. I actually recognized them from Wisconsin Death Trip.
The Static X album?
Aha.
Oh, the book. Isn't it a book? Yeah,
the book.
okay.
Wisconsin Death Trip is a book filled with newspaper articles and photos. Back in the 1800s, it was a town that went crazy due to having, I think they were Polish immigrants that bought this land.
Yeah.
And they were screwed over on the land. The land was already done. The land was dead. So they got like one harvest season out of it. And basically over the next 3 or 4 years, the entire town either starved to death or killed each other.
God damn.
Yes, they went nuts because it was also like 3 really harsh winters in a row. So just like it happened, it actually still happens in like Alaska and Colorado and shit right now, where winter hits so bad, power goes out for like weeks at a time, and the next thing you know, when everything starts to melt, there's literal dead bodies in the snow. People who just starve to death over the winter because everything becomes so secluded. So that's kind of what happened, and that's what Wisconsin Death Trip is. It's a book of all the photos because the only record that it happened was the local newspapers and them printing the death notices, and this guy killed his wife, and this one went nuts over here, and this one ate his horse, and these children were found.
He ate his horse.
So, yeah, dude. And there was actually there's actually a documentary on it too, which is amazing. Yeah. If you've ever seen it is one of the most depressing but incredibly interesting documentaries.
It would have been cool if it was it was the cover of Wisconsin Death Trip by Static.
Yeah, but that's where it comes.
I know it's a book. That's why it's called Wisconsin Death. But I just thought it was funny.
The book, and that's why I recognize the photos on the walls.
I've never read the book, so every time I hear the name, I think of Static X.
Oh, it's hard to find.
You don't need to grab it. No, it's fine.
I got it, but it's actually a pretty large book. Like it's a wide book, because it's all newspaper clippings and everything, and explains and puts everything in timeline over the course of like 4 years. So I recognize a lot of the pictures from that because they're news article photos, so they're public domain.
I've never read it, so that's why I didn't recognize any of them.
Yeah. So, then there's another 26-minute interview with the composers. Climax Golden Twins is their name.
Mm.
Yeah, there are a couple of experimental kind of weird. And then there is an hour-long interview with the producer and the DP.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's like there's like 3 hours worth of
That's
brand
awesome,
new
dude.
stuff. Yeah, it's
why didn't they
fucking
port all that
amazing.
shit over to the Scream Factory release?
Well,
Fuck.
the Scream Factory release was 2015 or so.
Yeah, I think
so. This
so.
is all new stuff that Second Sight produced.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, that sucks, man. Hopefully, well, maybe one day they'll release it here. Who knows? Maybe they'll do
maybe.
Ultimate Edition of Session 9.
That would be really cool. You know,
that's
so
definitely that's the version to pick up if you're a big fan of Session 9. Get
100%.
the version Manny has because
yes, get yourself.
everything else is a little lackluster. I feel
there's a second commentary track too.
I'm guessing it's a new commentary track, probably.
Yes, and on the back and read it. New audio commentary, new interview. Yeah, I went down all this compass, and then the book, and oh man, when they announced this, dude, when they announced this, I pre-ordered it immediately. I said, I got it. I know
you dropped some cabbage on that release.
I think this is. I'm gonna say 45, 50.
Oh, not bad.
Not bad.
It's worth it.
And yeah, I think it was totally. 45, 50 approximately. I think shipping was maybe another $10 or $15.
You're getting a lot of shit. You're getting a little booklet, the lobby card, so it's worth it. It's not. It's like a lot of physical stuff.
Awesome, like stand-up box.
Yeah, man.
Looks
like a little VHS tape almost.
Yeah, it's about the size of it.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. So, what's the closing thoughts? You know what? I'll start and I'll let you end it because I know this is one of your favorite movies of fucking all time. So, right, this has got to be. If you had to rate it, where would you put this in your top films?
I'd say it's probably in my top 20.
Yeah,
it's probably in my top 20. But it's like you said earlier. It's one of those movies you kind of forget how much you love it.
Yeah,
for
you watch
some
it
reason,
again.
I do. Like when I make my list of things, for some reason it doesn't top that list. But when they announced this, I'm like, I need to have it. I didn't hesitate.
That's weird, man. And that's really all I could say about the movie. Like to kind of close it out is like if you've never and we obviously spoiled the shit out of the movie at this point. But even if that spoilers don't bother some people. They just like to listen to people talk about horror movies. If you've never seen this, watch it. Find a way to watch it. If you don't want to buy one of these physical releases, you can rent it on YouTube or Amazon. It's very easy to find for like $3. I think that's really
all it is. I'm looking on Letterboxd right now. It says Amazon and YouTube. That's it. It's not on Tubi. It's not on Pluto. It's weird.
Next time a family member or a friend wants a recommendation for a horror film, I'm going to make sure I take note. And I recommend Session 9. I'm just telling
them,
watch
what this used to be.
Session 9. Like that's what, like that. It needs more love. I feel like it needs to be appreciated more. We always hear about. I feel like the Conjuring movies, and I love the Conjuring movies. You see the Nun, and you see all these characters, and I feel like that movie gets a lot of love. But why doesn't a movie like Session 9, that even though it's technically not supernatural, in kind of the more traditional sense, it's still, you wouldn't know that if you don't know the ending. You'd think this is a fucking creepy ass haunted house movie, even though it's a hospital. But
kind of is still.
Yeah, listen. I'm just glad we covered it. Just if someone Googles it, maybe they'll come across this episode or something, and just
it is totally one of those movies for me though. What you said is one of those. Oh, you know what? somebody's never seen it. I have to. This was one of those. I don't know. Did I show this to you? I know I showed it to Lynn.
Yeah.
I introduced Joe to this. I introduced Ruben to this. I introduced Emily to this.
I remember.
First time that Emily ever came by my place, I put this on for her.
You might have. I might have watched this with you. I don't really remember, and I have a pretty decent memory from back then.
I don't know.
But I know you always talk. We watched a lot of stuff. I remember you always talking about it. So there's a chance we might. There's a chance that one of the times I watched it was with you. So
because I got this the same day. I'm pretty sure I got this the same day as Ginger Snaps at Kim's Underground, and they were both the Canadian releases. I'd never heard of either one of them. I was like, oh, look at this. A werewolf movie. And this is Session 9. This seems interesting. Haunted hotel. Haunted hotel. We keep calling it a hotel.
Shining on the brain.
It's a cool looking thing. It looks like the Changeling with a, haunted mental hospital. Like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's a great movie. It needs more love, and that's really all I can say about it. More people need to get their, get more eyes on it because it's just it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I think my final thoughts is forget it's not even about the movie. I hope that the people listening to this love that we covered this, because I even checked. I went into Podcast Addict and I just searched Session 9, and I only found 2 other podcasts that have covered it.
Yeah, because everyone's talking about fucking Friday the 13th for the 100th time. They're
talking about the fucking Conjuring.
There you go.
Yeah, I found like there was nobody who covered Session. I was like, are you kidding me? So I'm like, I'm hoping that the people see, like, they're like happy that we covered this.
Yeah.
You know, and especially like you said, this is being an international release. Not everybody has an all region player. So you know what? There's everything you're missing by not having this, and it's like, oh fuck, maybe I gotta.
That's the one thing to take away from this episode.
Yeah,
right?
that's why I wanted to be really comprehensive with what's in the features, simply because it's a foreign release, because it's a non-US release, so not many people are gonna be able to get their hands on it. In fact, I don't even know, this might even be sold out for all I know.
There you go, out of print probably at this point.
It's possible.
But yeah, just that's the one thing you can take away from this episode. Go watch fucking Session 9 right now.
I want to come home. I am so sorry.
So that was Session 9. Be sure to subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, @Haunted Hangover. Check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/hauntedhangover31.
And make sure to follow us, subscribe, rate, and review on whatever podcasting app you're listening to this on.
And as always, remember, the best cure for a hangover is
more booze.
Catch you guys later.